Introducing.
Can we all give her a round of applause real quick?
Acclaimed author, Matt Newman.
Not a survivor, warrior. That's what she is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity today to share my story, share my journey, and go over the realness and purity we can provide. Change breeds complacency, or change breeds opportunity? How do we look at change in this room? I grew up, and I was very lucky to grow up in northern New Jersey, right outside New York City. I grew up with a father who was a financial advisor. My brother ended up becoming a financial advisor. My uncle was a financial advisor. I had lessons that I learned when I was young that really I didn't understand. They were somewhat peculiar, if you will. But over time, I learned that those lessons paid off. And when those lessons came to light, it gave me a better understanding of the job of the financial advisor. There was a time for years where we would talk about rates of return, the cost of investing, all this other stuff. But here's the reality. We have one job as financial advisors, ladies and gentlemen. Our job, again, as you just heard, is to be there when things are bad. Anybody can do this by themselves. They can go on Charles Schwab for 3 basis points and buy the S&P 500 and see all the data that you're going to provide to them. They could actually go on Fidelity now. Does anybody know how much it costs to go on the Fidelity platform and buy the S&P 500? Nothing, as my Italian wife would say, un gats, nothing, zip, zilch right there. The reality is, our job is when things are bad, to allow people to know that we had a plan in place, that they have independence and dignity going forward, that they're able to live their goals, live their dreams, because we put everything in place prior to the negative happening. When do most people want life insurance? When they can't get it. When do most people want long-term care? When do most people want some type of financial plan? When they lose 30% in the market and they don't know what to do. The majority of people we talk with are looking at what happened yesterday. Our job is to pay attention to what's going to happen tomorrow. Another example I'll give you is how many of us are familiar with the robo-advisor? The Wall Street Journal just put out at the close of 2018. Does anybody want to guess how many assets were brought in by the robo-advisor up to that point? $1 trillion. Let me put, from my perspective, what that means. I don't need you. I can do this myself. This is easy. So let's give a good analogy on this. I want you to imagine that you're now embracing that we are full financial planners. Our job is to have a plan in place that allows you, when the negative happens, that we can give your family some semblance of good news at the toughest of times and become no longer a financial advisor, as I said, change breeds opportunity, but become a family life coach. And that's the future, and that's the now of this business. Being there for people, for the entire family, not just one person that you're talking to. So we decided it's important that we put estate planning in. People have to get their wills. They have to do all this stuff prior to negative happening. So we call a friend of ours who's an attorney and go, hey, man, I want to get my will done. I got to get this in place. It's something that has to be taken care of. And he goes, listen, we charge $1,500 to get a will done. You're a buddy of mine. I'll do it for $750. You know what most people would say to that? Going on LegalZoom, it's $39. I'm not going to pay that money. That's crazy. The following day, your stomach hurts. So you call a friend of yours who's a doctor. And for those of you that work closely with the majority of doctors, now the high-end doctors, they're off insurance. So you call a friend of yours and say, hey, man, I want to come in. He goes, listen, we charge $350. You're a buddy. I'll do it for $175. You know what a lot of us are going to say? I can go on WebMD. It's free. I'm not doing that. The following day, ladies and gentlemen, you get sued. You get issued a lawsuit, and you have to go to court. How many of you are paying $39 for LegalZoom, or how many of you are going to go get the best attorney you can get, and price all of a sudden doesn't matter? The next day, you start to feel really sick. You realize there's a serious problem. How many of you are going to go on WebMD and take the holistic approach to trying to fix something? Or how many of you are going to go get the best doctor you can get, and you'll worry about price later? We've always heard the term price is an issue in the absence of value. We might be looking at the greatest opportunity we've ever seen. When there's $1 trillion, that if this market continues to go down, if bonds continue to lose value, if people are going to run out of money as they're living longer, the robo-advisor is not going to take their call. The question I have is, are you selling product, or are you selling strategies and solutions? One more point about change breeds opportunity. I want to give a little shout out to my friend Tom Dempsey. Tom just got a pretty big promotion. I think he's pretty excited about that. That's changed for Tom. Tom was on the mutual fund side, the annuity side, the wholesaling side. He could have looked at something like that and said, I'm comfortable where I am. But him taking that on to work with everyone in this room is an amazing person that you're going to follow. Because you're not just following Tom, you're following leadership. And that's what clients do. Clients believe in us. They buy our strategies, our solutions, and they will follow us into battle if we let them know with confidence and vigor that we have it taken care of. And the lessons that I got from my father doing this early on, it's amazing how one day they come to fruition. I'm going to take everybody back to 1996. 1996, I graduated from the place called the University of Delaware. How many of you know where the University of Delaware is? How many of you know what the name of our mascot is? The Fightin' Blue Hens. Wrong. We call it the ass-kicking chicken. I'm going to throw that one out there to everybody right now. I graduated from the University of Delaware. I went there on a soccer scholarship. I got this blue gown on, this blue hat on. I am feeling good. My parent, Maya Angelou, gave our big speech. My parents come walking down. My dad gives me that look like, you know, he's right from the Bronx, like, way to go, buddy, way to go. I'm like, yeah. He goes, what do you think it is you want to do, Matt? I go, Dad, that's easy. I'm going to become a financial advisor and join your firm. I'm going to clean my dad's Bronx language up, ladies and gentlemen, very nicely, but he said there is no bleeping chance that that's ever going to happen. And man, was I upset. Every picture of me of graduation is like this. Like, what a jerk. I can't believe this guy's doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, he's giving me one of the greatest lessons in life. He's saying there's no free lunches. You got to go earn it. You got to find out if this is something for you. So what he told me to do was go get licensed with a mutual fund or annuity company in 1996 and see if it was something that I liked, something that I took to. So I went to work for a company called Golden American Life Insurance. Most of you probably never, ever heard of that. And I started my career in wholesaling. They were based in Wilmington, Delaware, and I moved down to Philadelphia. I told you I'm from northern Jersey. When I moved to Philadelphia, I moved to an area called Old City. Old City where they have the National Constitution Center, the Liberty Bell, where the American flag was knit. It had this burgeoning, beautiful feeling of young people who went through grad school, doctors, lawyers, everybody starting their careers. It was cobblestone streets and bars and restaurants. It was infectious. And I might have been the guy from North Jersey, but my first day in Philadelphia, I knew that was going to be home to me. I was growing roots there, and it became real, and I built this amazing sense of kinship with all the people that were in the area, and I built my life. So I started wholesaling. And in 1997, the company I worked for got bought. And they got bought by a company called ING, another Netherlands company I'll throw out there. My father told me when it got bought, there's 3 things you have to focus on if you truly want to be successful in this industry. One is never sell a product that you or your family wouldn't own. Lose the battle to win the war. It's about relationship building. Earn the respect and earn the trust of everybody you're with, and if you don't believe in it, tell them that and you will always get a second shot. Great advice. Number 2, always think about the end user. And this was pre-DOL, ladies and gentlemen, but what happens if something goes bad to the end user? Whose problem actually is it? It's yours. The better you're able to incorporate this into doing the right thing for a client, the better that advisor will have better relationships, and they will be able to get more referrals as well, too. And number 3 was practice everything you preach. You be the shoemaker as kids had shoes. If you do those 3 things and you outwork everybody, business will go fantastic for you. And it was something that I took to. I felt like I had this lessons I learned at a young age as a financial advisor that I was taking into my business. And in 2000, I started to really do well. 2001, I became the #1 guy at my company. 2002, I became one of the top guys in the industry. And my father called me in 2002. I said, Matt, I think we have to have a discussion. I said, yeah, what's going on? He goes, you've really proved your salt. Not bad, man. Beast mode, right? He said, I think we should talk about you joining my firm. I said, Dad, you can't afford me any longer. That's over. We're done with that one right now. I found my calling. I found something I loved. And it was something that I enjoyed doing. It was almost a financial planning background into the wholesaling arena, selling strategies, and everything we talked about. It's our job to plan for what's going to happen tomorrow. Whatever happened yesterday is irrelevant. Our job is to make sure that we can provide independence and dignity to those who retire at the toughest and most daunting of times. And that's how we built our business. 2004, business is going great. We just had the correction in 2000. People are seeing the need as pensions are going the way of the dodo. And what I used to do every year is our home office at ING was based in Westchester, Pennsylvania, about a 40-minute ride from Philadelphia. And I would take my assistant, my internal, and I would have them bring a spouse or a girlfriend in, and I would say, I want to take them out to dinner. I know how much work they put in. I know how hard they did. I think showing appreciation and love for people is extremely important. So every year I would have that happen. The year is 2004. 3 weeks before I take them out to dinner, I told my mom, business is great. All my friends live within 3 blocks of me. I'm never getting married, Mom. And I watched her break down in tears right in front of me right there. So I take them out to dinner at a place called the Radicchio Cafe on Chestnut Street, not too far from the Liberty Bell. And as we're out to dinner, I hear the one thing nobody ever wants to hear from your assistant or internal's wife. Have I got a girl for you? I'm like, oh, God, you got to be kidding me. So here's the question. Do I have to call her? Or do I have to make her mad where now I have an issue? So the next day, I call my internal up. I'm like, hey, man, do me a favor. Give me your number. Let me just get this over with. Let me give her a call. He goes, yeah, she's not interested in talking to you. Really? You're going after the salesman that way, right? That's the way it's going to work? He goes, she's not over her boyfriend yet. They just broke up. I'm like, really? That's the case. So about a month later, he called me up and goes, she wants to talk to you now. So I give her a call. I have a pretty good relationship with her. And conversation goes great. And I'm like, all right, we should go on a date. So I decided to have her come into Philadelphia. And we go to a place called Jones, this great old restaurant. It looks like a Brady Bunch living room with shag carpets and DJs spinning stuff. I'm going to look good in this date that we're going on right now. So she picks me up. We go over to Jones. And it's March of 2004. For those of you that like sports in here, what's the best thing going on in March every year? NCAA tournament. There's a little bar right next to this restaurant called the Las Vegas Lounge. I had to bring that up because we're in Vegas. What they would do is they'd let you go next door, and they will come tap you on the shoulder and go, Mr. Newman, your table's ready, come on in. So we go into the Las Vegas Lounge, and it's loud. Everything is crazy. You hear screaming going all the way down Chestnut Street in Philadelphia. How many of you have heard of a college called St. Joe's? It's the first time that they're in the Final Eight in about 40 years. Philadelphia is going absolutely crazy. They're going nuts. It's a basketball town. We walk in there, you can't even get in. There's drinks flying all over the place. There's 4 minutes left. Tie game. Delonte West has the ball. And here's what I feel. Mr. Newman, your table's ready. And all of a sudden, I hear this girl go, we're not going in, right? And I went, you are the one for me. I am marrying you. That is it. I am done, sold right now. This is my person. And we just connected, and we never stopped seeing each other from that point. I told you I grew up in northern Jersey. I'm a Jewish guy from northern Jersey. My father's an advisor. I told you my mother's a teacher. My wife grew up in a very different environment. My wife grew up in an area called Minersville, Pennsylvania. It's old mining country. She's a Catholic girl. The problem with old mining country is all those mines shut down. It's like meth labville up there now. It's really sad what's happened. There's no employment. You either leave and never come back, or you stay and you get stuck. My wife grew up in a 400 square foot row home. Her father was a highway construction worker. Her mom was a janitor. We are two unbelievably different backgrounds that connected. But when I met her parents, we just got along great. Her father liked to hunt. He liked to fish. He liked to fix things. I did none of that in any way whatsoever. But we both love to have a beer and watch baseball and just enjoy our time together. So 2006, we get married. About 9 months after that in November, we were expecting our first child. You guys want the hint on that one right there? So we decided we had to move out of the city. And we moved to an area called Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And we live in a town called Washington Crossing. I will give everybody one guess. Why do you think it's called Washington Crossing if we live on the Delaware River? You'd be shocked at the looks I get going, let me think about that for a minute right now. We'll try and digest that. We move out, we build this beautiful house, our dream house. My wife is pregnant, and right before my first son is born, in September of 2007, my father says to me, he goes, what do you say to your clients every day? We got a plan for what's going to happen tomorrow. What happened yesterday is irrelevant. Our job is to make sure people have independence and dignity, and we're there for them when things are bad. He goes, you're the shoemaker his kids have shoes, right? I go, absolutely. He goes, did you do all your financial planning? I go, what do you mean? He goes, did you do all your insurance? Did you do your will? Did you do your ILETs? Did you do everything that you talk about doing? Or are you going a different way? I'm like, Dad, I just did a Tough Mudder. I just did this. I'm 34 years old. did you do everything you say? And I went that week and did everything. I'm going to be a dad now. I'm not going to make my plans after my son is born. I'm going to make them in advance, so if something happens, I will be prepared for it. And I went and I did it all. There's some of it I didn't really want to do. But there's a lot of things we don't want to do. And we often find out it was necessary in the future that we did them prior to the negative happening. My first son is born. 2009, my second son is born, about 16 months apart. Everything is going great. Business is shooting upwards. In March of 2009, I came to Transamerica. And business just continued to shoot forward. Things were going great. 2010 comes. My wife is 6 months pregnant with our third. We're on target to have 3 in 37 months. And one day, yes, that's true. One day, my in-laws are over, and my best friend runs something called CHOP. Did you guys ever hear Children's Hospital of Philadelphia? He runs the pediatric anesthesiology area there. And he never has any free time. And he was turning 40, and I said to my wife, let me and Rick go out and play golf one day. Let us sneak out. Your parents are coming. He never gets the chance. For those of us that have kids and try to play golf, we know if they're very young, usually our stuff will be waiting on the front lawn when we get home. She goes, okay, go today. So Rick and I go out and we play golf, and we come back. And my father-in-law, Larry, is sitting on our driveway, and he's fixing our mailbox, which is normal. That's what he did. He just went around and grew vegetables and did all this kind of stuff. So I pull up into the driveway and go, Larry, you're looking a little skinny, man. He's like, yeah, I've had some stomach issue going on. I'm like, well, do me a favor. When you're done fixing the mailbox, there's a light out in the garage. Go take care of that. And I put the window up, and I'm laughing. And my buddy Rick looks at me and goes, dude, there's a problem. I go, what are you talking about? There's no problem. He's fixing the mailbox. He goes, he looks jaundiced. I go, what are you talking about? He just turned 60 years old. He looks fine. He's doing what he does. He goes, I'm telling you there's an issue. I walk in. My wife and my father-in-law were like two peas in a pod. They were unbelievably close. They would talk almost every day. He tells my wife immediately calls the University of Pennsylvania and goes, I just want to bring him to the best just to make sure he's going to be okay. It's about a 45-minute ride. That year, 2010, we're celebrating Father's Day. We're enjoying life. We're trying to appreciate the moment. And in the middle of our Father's Day celebration, my father-in-law's phone rang. And that was the moment we found out at 60 years old he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. My first experience with cancer, ladies and gentlemen, happened when I was 15 years old. My Grandma Harriet, was diagnosed. I wasn't old enough to understand it. I wasn't old enough to truly digest it. But what I do remember is one day, she was 57-year-old Grandma Harriet. The next day, she was wearing a cancer turban. The next day, she was gone. My mom and my grandmother were just like my wife and her father. They spoke every day. Every weekend, we were there or they were at our house. What I do understand was the devastation of what it did to my mom. It built this anger, this hate up for me in cancer. Watching it change her life, watching it make her cry every day, watching her become a different person. And I look back and I wish I could have been there for her. I wish I could have truly understood it, but at 15, I couldn't take it all in. But what I did take in is cancer did what it wanted, when it wanted, and it came and did something devastating to my family. What I do remember is we're going to a town called Paramus, New Jersey, to put my grandmother on the ground. And my father pulled up at the office building, and he ran in real quick. And when he ran in, I was sitting in the back seat of the car with my brother. And I remember the Simon and Garfunkel song came on, The Sound of Silence. I don't know why I remember this, but there's a line in there, silence like a cancer grows. And every time I hear it, it makes me think of my grandma. And it makes me think of what it did to my mom, who was never the same after that. My wife was 6 months pregnant. She made it her full-time job that she was going to take care of her 2 kids that were under 2 years old, take care of her husband, and do nothing but help her dad. What I watched was inspirational. It was warrior-like. The emotion, it didn't matter. She takes him down to the University of Pennsylvania and gets a Whipple procedure. She would then drive him every day, 7 months pregnant, down to the University of Pennsylvania and back for chemo and radiation. She had to be there for her dad. And that's strength. Strength is not the size of your arms. Strength is not how much you bench press. Strength is something that's deep down in your belly that at the deepest and darkest of times you can grab and you can utilize. And I watched her do that. Larry kind of became like a roller coaster. Cancer is very unpredictable. Here's the problem with pancreatic cancer. Does anybody know the average lifespan after you get diagnosed? It's 3 months. And the reason it's 3 months is you don't usually find out about what's going on, feel symptoms, until everything's spread all over the place. We get to the end of that year, and his PET scans come back pretty good. We understand the reality of what he has. But he was like a roller coaster. They'd say it was good. He'd go back for the next one. It would go down. In the summer of 2011, they tell us that everything looks okay. So I turned to my wife and I said, you and I, we need to get away. It's our 5-year anniversary. We need to go someplace. We need to spend time together. We're understanding and appreciating the moment. So we end up going to Paris. And right before we're about to leave, they find something they can't really explain to us on Larry's PET scan. My wife's like, I'm not going, I'm not going. He's looking at her going, you're going. You have to enjoy the moment. You have to live in the now. So we go out to Paris with a plan. They're going to give him a test. My sister-in-law is going to call us. That same night, we're going to celebrate our 5-year anniversary. We're going to celebrate him doing well, and we're going to enjoy our time in Paris. My wife and I are holding hands, living in the moment, seeing life through a different lens than we had before. I remember there was a bottle of Bordeaux sitting there. We're having a drink. We're waiting for this call. I see my sister-in-law's name pop up on the phone. We know we're going to get the call. We're going to say, all's good. See you later. We're going to dinner. I see my wife answer the phone with a big smile on her face, and I watch the phone drop. Cancer didn't care it was our anniversary. Cancer did what it wanted to do. And it did what it wanted, like I said before, when it wanted. The only thing I remember about that night is just paying whatever the freight was to get us back because my wife needed to be with her dad. She needed to be there to support him. 2012, he goes off the chemo again. It's amazing what we're watching. He's just fighting because he had 2 goals that he told me the day he got diagnosed. One is he would see all his grandkids born. And number 2, they would all be old enough to remember him. He never complained. He never bitched. He never did anything. He had a goal of what he was going to accomplish, and he just fought like a warrior. And again, I'll use the term again, it was inspirational. The beginning of 2013, he's back at our house on chemo. My wife's taking care of him. And I'm driving to go to a meeting on Route 202 in a town called Bridgewater, New Jersey, for those of you that know where it is. It's a day just like today in New Jersey. Miserable, icy, snowy, all the schools are closed, nothing's working. I'm driving up and all I'm seeing are fender benders all over the side of the road. I'm like, man, I ain't dealing with this today. I'm doing 25 miles per hour, and I'm going to take my time. I pull right up to a road called Chubb Way. How many of you know Chubb, the insurance company? That's their office. I pull right up. I'm doing 25 miles per hour. I hit my brakes. My car shoots like a rocket ship, takes out the car in front of it, rolls over, goes into the median, airbag goes off. I'm squeezing that wheel, thinking every ounce of working out I do, this is why it happened right now. I get out of the car. Car's completely totaled. Cops come up to me, they go, hey man, dude, you got to go to the hospital. I'm like, no, I'm cool. Beast mode, I'm good. No worries. He's like, you got to go to the hospital. I'm like, no, I'm okay. So I call my wife. I go, listen, the car is totaled. I'm okay. She goes, you got to go to the hospital. I'm like, no, I think I'm good. She goes, don't forget what happened to our friend Karen Mancini. We have a friend named Karen Mancini. She gets T-boned in a town called Yardley, Pennsylvania. Boom. Police officers say to her, you should go get checked out just in case. Doctors walk into the hospital room and say, you need to send a thank you note and flowers to the person that hit you. We found a brain aneurysm. You would have been dead in 3 hours. I took a deep breath, thought about my kids, and I did what any type A personality does. I rented a car and went on my way. That night I get home and my head is killing me. I'm thinking, do I not remember, did I ding my head? I mean, I thought I had a pretty good memory of it. I thought I was, coherent the entire time. And my wife suffers from something called chronic migraines. She gets them every day. It is what it is. She fights. She does what she has to do. So she hears me going, oh, my head, my God. She goes, I don't want to hear it. Try getting migraines every day. Good job going to the hospital. And walks out and goes to try and take care of her dad. Over the next 3-4 days, that pain gets so severe that it never stops. Over the next 2 weeks, I lose all the ability to sleep. So I'm giving a presentation in that same town of Bridgewater, New Jersey, right near where I got hit. I got 150 people in the room. Everything is going well. I've been doing these all the time, nonstop. And I go to make a point on the PowerPoint, and I feel a hot flash hit me in the face. And all of a sudden, just slur and gurgle poured out of my mouth. I couldn't put a thought together. I didn't know where I was. I remember looking at myself going, dude, you're having a stroke. You are having a stroke right now. It felt like an eternity. I kind of got myself together, and I'm like, oh, I got 3 kids that are sick. I didn't sleep well last night. Let's bounce into this. Meeting ends. I found out that little moment I had was about 4 to 5 seconds. And a good buddy of mine at BlackRock, who I've known for 20 years, comes up to me and goes, dude, what was that, man? I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I've done hundreds of these with you. You don't miss a word, man. What's going on? I go, I don't know. Can't sleep too well. My head's killing me. I don't know. I must have a sinus infection. He goes, I'm going to share with something I never told you. When I was 6 years old, I got hit in the head with a baseball bat. I've been on anti-seizure medication for 38 years. Dude, you got to go to someone right now. I am telling you as your friend. And I played it off, and I walked to my car, and I was scared out of my mind. These strokes started to happen. I started to get these hot flashes. I couldn't sleep. My head was in immense pain. And my wife is taking care of my father-in-law, who's now going back down on his roller coaster. So we're getting ready to run that race called the Broad Street Run in Philadelphia, the largest 10-mile race in the country. And we do it to have fun. We do it with a group of people. And we're running the towpath on the Delaware River, this beautiful area, under covered bridges and horse farms, where all this history is. And my wife asks me a question when she runs. My wife likes to talk when she runs. I like to put my headphones on and not talk to her while I'm running. So we're running, she asks me a question, and a hot flash hits me, and just slur and gurgle pours out. She's like, what's going on? I'm like, I just had another one of those things. We jump in the car, we go right to the doctor. Doctor tells me it's the worst season ever for sinus infections. I got to take all this medicine. I'm like, whoa, no medicine in this temple. I don't do that. They go, you got to knock this thing out. They gave me Xanax, this, help me sleep. I took it one day, ladies and gentlemen. I woke up in a haze the next day. That was awful. I figured there's no way that's going to work. May 14th, 2013, I'm giving a speech in front of 400 people in Parsippany, New Jersey, my hometown where I grew up. For the 11th time, as I'm about to make a point, I feel the hot flash hit me. I now know the deal. I'm going to turn my back. I'm going to kill the 4 to 5 seconds. And that was the moment I turned around and I went, I got to go to the hospital. This is ridiculous. I got to go right now. All these people, when I finished the presentation, raised their hands. What everybody remembers in the room is my head went. I answered one question. Oh, I'm running late. I apologize. I got to go. All these nice people walking to me in my car. Hey, Matt, let me ask you a question. All I'm thinking is, all that working out I do, someone's about to be put on the ground. That is not me. I get in the car. I peel out of the parking lot. That is not me. I call my doctor. I go, you gave me all that medication, blah, blah, blah. That didn't work. I hear him read some notes. He goes, you got to go to the hospital right this second, right now. So my wife's shopping in a mall called the King of Prussia Mall. I'm sure some of you have heard of. I call her up. She's got a 35-minute ride. I have a 90-minute ride to a place called Capitol Health. Ladies and gentlemen, my head's all over the place. Maybe this is no big deal. Maybe they're just going to give me some medicine. They'll fix it. Maybe I'm going to die. My head's spinning everywhere. So I get down to Capitol Health. She's waiting for me in the parking lot, and we walk in. And the doctor says, Matt, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give you a CAT scan. I'm like, yeah, it's like an X-ray. No problem with the CAT scan. So I go in. I get the CAT scan. And the doctor comes back, goes, Mr. Newman, we think we know the issue. I'm like, what? He goes, you have a lesion right here. Now, to me, a lesion is a cut or a bruise. I'm thinking, I must have hit my head in that axe. I must have, oh, okay. He goes, it's causing you massive pain. I'm like, you don't know the half of it, man. It's causing you to lose the ability to sleep. I'm like, yes. And he goes, you're not having strokes, Mr. Newman. You're having seizures. I'm like, oh my God, I'm thinking of my friend from BlackRock who said that 4 months earlier. I'm like, yes, sounds like tough news to digest, right? I'm like, no, that's the issue. Boom, what do we got to do to fix it? I'm good with this. You're going to have to get an MRI, MRA, we're going to have to do all this stuff. I go through 7-8 hours of testing. At 3 o'clock in the morning, they say, we got to give you one more MRI, MRA with contrast just to check something. I go, no problem. My wife looks at me, she goes, listen, we've been here for like 9-10 hours. I'm going to go home. I'm going to make lunch for the kids. I'm going to get someone to take my father down to UPenn for his chemo, and I'll be back by 5:30 in the morning. So this woman comes in with a wheelchair, and she goes, Mr. Newman, we got to take you down. I'm like, no wheelchair. I just did the Broad Street Run 8 days ago. I'll walk. She goes, you can't. It's a liability. You got to get in the chair. So I get in the chair. And the woman comes up. She goes, all right, Mr. Newman, let's see. MRI, MRA, now we got to do it with contrast. We need to see how big your brain tumor is. I went, it's a lesion. And that was the moment at 39 I was diagnosed with brain cancer. They put me in the tube for an hour and a half. My head's spinning all over the place. They brought me back. They hooked me up to about 30 different machines. I'm in this little bed like this. And I have no problem telling you this. When they walked out, I remember the Yankee game was just on rerun over and over on the TV. And I just started to cry. I started to have retrospective on my life. What did I do? I'm a good dad. I'm a good husband. There must have been something I did to cause this. I got 3 kids under 4 years old. I got a father-in-law dying. Why are you doing this to us? And ladies and gentlemen, I said it earlier. Strength is something that you can find at the deepest of darkest of times. You have to find it, you have to own it, and you have to make it yours. And I don't know where it came from, but I just started cursing my brains out. And the nurses all come running in, and they tell this story to this day. They're like, are you okay? Are you okay? I went, I'm fine. That was my pity party. If I was going down, I was going down swinging. I don't know where it came from. I didn't know I had that in me, but when I found it, it was mine. Cancer was just along for that ride. I'm taking charge of this. This is my life. This is my journey. So the next morning, my wife and the doctor walk in. Surgeon goes, let me tell you what we're going to do. I go, let me tell you what the hell you're going to do. You're going to get this out of my head, and I'll take care of the rest. And he goes, don't move. He comes running back, goes, you're going to be here for a while, Mr. Newman. I want you to read this study by the American Medical Association on recovery. There's some diseases we get, and there's just nothing we can do about it. Those diseases will never dictate our legacy. They will never define us. We define us. If we allow that to happen, that's on our shoulders. But what that study talked about recovery, it said, what do you think 80% of recovery is based off of? What do you think? Attitude. That's right. How many of you have heard of the downward spiral? What the downward spiral is, how many of you have clients that have been married for 50 years, husband gets cancer, all of a sudden he dies, wife's healthy as a horse, and what do you find out happens 6 months later? Downward. Do you know what the odds of getting out of the downward spiral are? They're 0. Nobody gets out of it. Our job is to make sure we give people some semblance of good news, I told you, at the most difficult of times. So I'm sitting there, and this is all digesting with me. And my wife comes in and she goes, your family and my parents are coming over. Not her parents, my cancer partner. I realized this all happened for a reason. So I could watch the way, the dignity that he handled, the fight, the warrior mentality that he took. This happened for a reason with him. So I was able to be part of all this and learn the lessons that I was going to take forward. So I turned to my wife and said, do me a favor, hon. Give me the iPad. She goes, well, they're going to be here in 20 minutes. I go, just give me the iPad. She goes, do you want to watch a movie? I'm like, no, just give me the iPad. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing I pulled up was my will. It was done. My daughter wasn't on it, but for those of us that do true financial planning, she didn't have to be. Everything would funnel through my wife and go right through. I pulled up all my life insurance. Done. All my 529s. Done. All my annuities were joint life. Done. And I checked the box. I hear my parents and my in-laws walking down the hall. Larry walks in, just nods his head at me, silent like he always is, and I kind of nodded my head back. I see my parents walk in, and I know they're going to be supportive. I know they're going to be optimistic. I see the fear. I see the anxiety in their eyes. I know what it means when you hear your son has brain cancer. It means he's going to die. And my dad walks in. I go, Dad, come here. Come sit next to me. He goes, yeah, what's up? And I pulled out the iPad, and I showed him everything I just went through with you. And I took the iPad when I was done. And I threw it on the bed as I'm laying there. I go, Dad, there's one thing on my mind. He goes, what? I go, getting better. Everything that I ever talked about, I did. Every presentation I actually did was about me. I don't got to worry about any of that. My only focus is on beating this thing because everything else is done. And ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in my life, I saw my dad break down and cry. And my dad just lost it. And he looked at me and said, you're going to beat this. I said, I know I'm going to beat it. And these are the stories that you're going to share. This is what you're going to go around with. This is our job, to allow people to focus on the fight at hand because everything else was done. We don't sell insurance. We sell strategies. We don't sell annuities. We sell transferring of risk. Our job is to give people some semblance of good news when the family needs it the most. That Friday, I went in for a craniotomy. They cut half my head off. They pulled the jaw back, took out the tumor. I won't know for 10 days what it's going to be. I'm supposed to be in that hospital in the ICU for 7 to 9 days. You want to hear about health and wealth? I told you that I'm real into fitness. That surgery was on Friday. I went home on Sunday. You always hear this story that home is where the heart is. I started to look through a different set of lenses, ladies and gentlemen. I was starting to appreciate life more. I was starting to have a better understanding of how fragile it was and how much the moment really mattered. So my wife picks me up out front in the same car I brought there 6 days early. I get in the car. I got a second head. I'm a mess. She takes me home. And I walk up the side steps of our driveway into our house. And I see my 3 little kids there with their little signs, "Get better, Daddy." And I started to cry. I went upstairs to my bed. I slept for 13 hours getting out of that bed, hooked up to all that stuff. And I started to look through the lenses of my children instead of just looking at it from my perspective. And I started to appreciate what was happening instead of always focusing on the phone and work and all this other stuff. So day 5, my son Luke was having a Father's Day picnic at school. My wife said, "You don't have to go to this." She said, "I will drive you. You can't drive." I said, "There's no way I will ever miss something like this for my family, something I could do." So that morning, we take my kids to school, and I take my little 2-year-old, Lola, to her class. And she takes her little pink jacket, and she hangs it on the hook. And she gives me a little hug. She goes, "Thank you for taking me to school, Dad." And I said, "Why haven't I done this more? I'm looking at everything through my eyes. I might have just given her a memory for the rest of her life, something she will take with her. Why am I seeing this now? Why did this happen?" And my wife says to me, she goes, "You look beat up. You don't have to go to this lunch." I go, "I'll never miss it." So my wife drops me off at the lunch, and I'm seeing rainbows and unicorns. She drops me off. I walk in with a big hat on. Luke comes over. He gives me a big hug. He goes, "Thanks for coming, Dad." He's 5 years old. We walk into the backyard. Everybody's got their brown bag lunch. They're sitting next to their kid. And can I tell you what I saw? This was every dad. I went, "Oh, my God, that was me." I had a BlackBerry and an iPhone at that point. You know where my phone was that day, ladies and gentlemen? It was in the car. For 30 minutes, you can't spend that time and give them a memory. You have to go through these horrible things in life that some of us don't get through to realize how precious these times are and how we can be there for our children, for them, not on our terms, but see it through their eyes. Luke had something that he'll probably remember for life. I can tell you I would have been into that same person. I had no angst. I had no animosity. I felt that I was getting a gift from the experience that I was going through. What's interesting is I'm feeling rainbows and unicorns on this. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm seeing life differently. I'm becoming better at all this. And we go home that night, and I'm sitting with my cancer partner, Larry, and I'm telling him how happy I am I learned this. And 2 hours into being home, the phone rang, and they told us he had to get off chemo because he couldn't come back from the cancer any longer. Cancer didn't care about us. It didn't care about what we were doing. It did what it wanted to do when it wanted to. So what's interesting is day 10 I go in, and they tell me, "Mr. Newman, your cancer is a lot more aggressive than we thought." I go, "What do you mean?" They go, "You're going to have to go on chemo. You're going to have to go on radiation." And I kind of bought into that. And they go, "Every 3 months, we're going to have to do a test because it's most likely it's going to grow back." So they put me in for 7:10 a.m. for radiation. Radiation wasn't that hard. It was about 10 minutes long, but it beat you up. So I would get chemotherapy. I'd go to radiation. And I said, "I want the earliest time you got. I am going back to work. I am going to continue to do things. I'm going to work out. This is my journey." Again, cancer's just riding in that little seat next to me. So every day I would be in radiation. I would see this emaciated 70-pound woman, her son walking her over to where she would get her radiation done. He would sit next to me for 10 minutes. He would walk her out. They come in 2 weeks into it, and they go, "Mr. Newman, if you'd like, you can get to 7 o'clock. I go, "Done. I'll take the earliest one you got." They go, "We want to tell you, at the end of everybody's radiation, we do a ceremony. We say prayers, we sing songs, and we ring a gong. We're about to do that outside. Would you like to join us?" I said, "No, I got my iPad. I'm good. You tell me when you're done, and I'll go in." And they walked out, and I just looked and I said, "Who the hell do you think we are? We are a family of warriors." And I walked out, and I saw this 70-year-old emaciated woman who's only going down one path ring that gong with the biggest smile on her face, and I cried. And I told my wife, "You will be there." Those are life-changing experiences. That's strength. That's living in the moment. That's knowing that that was hers right there. So as things go by, unfortunately, Larry started to go the other way. We became like a scale. The better I got, the worse he got. I took my children to say goodbye to him. He was emaciated, he couldn't talk too much, and they had their moment. 2 weeks later, he weighed 60 pounds. All he could do was flutter his eyes. I went up to Minersville to say goodbye to him. My wife ran out of the room crying, and I looked at him and I said, Larry, it's time to go. You will never leave us spiritually. You will always be with us. But I got this. Don't worry about it. I will take care of the family. You need to be with us in a different capacity. And he died an hour later. And there's no doubt in my mind my cancer partner was waiting for me to come say goodbye to him, to let us have a physical goodbye together, but a goodbye that was always going to be temporary because he would always be with me in some fashion or another. So I started to write about things. I started to take all these thoughts I was having, all this negativity, this anxiety, and my catharsis became writing. I would send these messages out to people of my thoughts, my perspectives. Some of you in the room got that. And I did it because it helped me. It alleviated something. Over the next 3 years, we had 20,000 people following us on these emails. And here's what I learned. Cancer's like buying a car, ladies and gentlemen. When you buy a car, do you ever notice you leave the lot and you go, oh my God, I see this car everywhere? Wrong, that car was always there. You just didn't have a connection with it. And the minute you do, you see it everywhere. I started to see cancer everywhere, just like you heard. And I started to get into all these support groups. And I decided, maybe I should write a book. I'll do it for me. It's cathartic. It'll help me. And maybe we could help people do the right thing. Maybe we could help them, let them know they're not alone in their journey. We get to my 4-year anniversary of going through being cancer-free. It's May of 2017. I get good news. They go, Mr. Newman, all looks good. We'll see you in 3 months. Remember, it's most likely going to grow back. I'm like, you could always leave that part out. You don't have to tell me that. See you in 3 months. Everything's looking good, no problem. 4 years is a big deal. So I go down with my father to play golf that day, to spend time with family. And we come back, and my son Luke is writhing in pain, sitting on the couch. And I walk over, and I go, what's going on? My wife's like, he's riding his bike. A car's coming down the road. He turns his handlebars. Boom, they drilled him. He wipes out. I walk over. I pull up his shirt. There's no bruise. There's no blood. I'm like, son, we all fall off our bikes. Sometimes it's alcohol-induced. Sometimes it's not. You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And he is screaming and writhing in pain. Over the next 2 days, he's screaming. He's 9 years old. Sunday morning, this was a Friday, 4 a.m., he's screaming. I grab him. I take him to the hospital. They put us in the same room I got diagnosed in. The same room I got told I got to go on chemo. The same room I just got told that this was my celebratory weekend of being 4-year cancer-free. They bring him in. They give him a CAT scan. I go, Luke, this will be easy. You get a CAT scan. It's like an x-ray. You'll be done in 2 minutes. They give him a CAT scan. Doctor comes running out about 20 minutes later. There's not a soul in a suburban hospital at 4:30 in the morning. And the doctor says, could I talk to you in the other room, Mr. Newman? I go, yeah, what's going on? She goes, your son has to be medevac to CHOP right this second. His liver is completely lacerated. I go, this is my weekend. She goes, he needs to go now. I go, we live 40 minutes away. He needs to get on a helicopter this second, right now. My wife comes flying up. They jump on a helicopter. Phew. You know, my first thought was, give me the freaking cancer back, man. Just put it on my shoulders. Give it to me. Not my son. I drive down there. There's 20 doctors poking him with all this stuff. They say, so here's the good news. The liver's a regenerating organ. If there's an infection in the blood, you have a serious problem. Okay, so when we take him home, what do? You're not taking him home. He's going to go to the ICU for about a week. Ladies and gentlemen, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is the #1 rated children's hospital in the world. I hope none of you ever go to the ICU there. The people who work there are not nearly given the recognition they deserve. 70% of people that go there are from another country. 75% don't leave. In the room next to us, there was a guy with a hazmat suit on holding a 2-day-old. That will put you in check. We know if there's no blood infection, Luke will go home. We're there for 6 days. My wife tells me she took a picture of the helicopter that flew them down because she's so appreciative of everything that pilot, Michael Murphy, did. She wants to make sure she could send him something to thank him because she was so scared and he did such a great job taking care of them. We bring Luke home. They say for 12 weeks. He can't fight. He can't get in any accidents. As long as there's no infection over 12 weeks, he's going to be okay. And we have a moment of prayer in that hospital for all those people that aren't going to leave and the understanding and appreciation of what they're dealing with and the warriors that are parents that are doing whatever they have to do for their kids. The next day I go to work and my wife calls me. She goes, I can't stop crying. I told you my wife's from mining country, PA. She don't cry. Not at all. quite intimidating, actually. She calls me up. She goes, I can't stop crying. Call me. I go, what's going on? She goes, are you watching the news? I go, no, what's up? The helicopter that just took me and Luke just went down in Newcastle, Delaware. And Michael Murphy, the pilot, just died. He had a 2-year-old at home and a pregnant wife. And it was the first time I looked up. I'm like, really? This is what you're doing? And I thought, I really hope that he had the proper financial planning, something to alleviate this burden. And ladies and gentlemen, 3 days later, a GoFundMe page came out for Michael Murphy. What I've learned through this experience is that everybody connects through realness and purity. We don't sell product. We share stories and strategies that allow people to connect. I never saw this book going the way it's going. I never thought I'd be on ESPN. I never thought I'd do TED Talks. I never thought I'd be on all these shows. But what you realize is people buy your strategies by connecting with them and allowing them to start at the finish line. Thank you very much for giving me a couple minutes today, everybody. Thanks. Thank you very much.
You are amazing.